Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Build It with Tim. On today's episode, we're talking about connection fields, specifically cascading connection data structures. Okay, a series of tables that all connect to each other from the topmost level table or object all the way down to the lowest level object. Okay, this is going to be a kind of structure that is seen typically inside of the Tadabase platform, and it is a very clear and defined hierarchy of tables. It also helps define your page structure. Okay, so we're going to go over in depth how to set this up with the data builder so that you can give yourself the best possible chance for success in the page builder. Okay, so we're going to be talking a lot about connection fields themselves, rules, and best practices when building in Tadabase. All right, let's get started. We'll see you in the builder. All right, so here's our finished product that we're working on today. Most of the content here is going to be done inside of the data builder, right? The actual data structure and how the connections are organized. Now, the way the connections are organized is that every single table has a direct connection to the tables above it. And what I mean by that is that this application or this group of tables has a very clear and defined hierarchy, where companies is the top level item, projects is the next level item, so on and so forth, until you get to time tracking, which is the lowest level item in this group of tables. Time tracking has direct connections to everything above it: the task, the deliverable, the project, and the companies. When I am looking at a particular task and I add let's go to task details for creating a demo app. When I'm adding a new time tracking record, because we have direct connections throughout this whole system, using various automations like table rules or form rules, you do not have to set any connections here. We're utilizing the actual connection source in the page and table rules to automatically set all of the cascading connections from the bottom all the way up to the top. Okay. Additionally, this gives you the ability to perform dynamic calculations on any given level, whether it's the company's table, the project's table, deliverables, or whatever table. We can always perform calculations on everything below it. Okay, how many projects, how many deliverables, how many tasks, and the total time worked for company-wide systems. Okay, that's what we're doing today. We'll show you how to build it now inside the builder. All right, so as I mentioned in the intro, what we're really talking about today is cascading connections and setting up connection fields in a way that you have a series of connected tables where you have a parent most table, and then all the way down at the bottom you have a child most table, or the lowest level table in the series of tables. Okay, so this could be one small section of your application. This could also be the content for your entire application. It's entirely up to you. Okay, but what we're kind of trying to focus on here is grouping this thought together into a manageable thing. All right, so in this use case or this example, we're going back to an old favorite of project management. Okay, I think that's very easy for a lot of people to understand. So that's the example that we're going to use today. Okay, where we're looking at this image in front of us now, and this is a basic example of how the data structure is going to look, right? Where each object here is a table. Okay, so we have a company's table. Now this is going to be the top level object, as you can see here. Everything is going to connect back to a company. Then if we look at the first column, okay, this is going to be all of our actual tables. We're going to have a company's table, a project's table, deliverables, tasks, and time tracking. Okay, those are all of our actual data tables. Now inside of each data table, we're always going to connect back to the most relevant or most direct parent. Okay, so projects will always connect back to companies. Okay, that is the next table up. As we keep going down, we're going to continue that process of always connecting to the previous tables. Okay, so projects will always connect to companies, deliverables will connect to the first two tables, tasks will always connect to the first 3 tables, and time tracking will always connect to the first 4 tables. Okay, this is a natural structure of how connections are actually organized and built. Okay, so when we're talking about connection fields inside of Tadabase, inside of the builder, there is a certain theory, I guess, or technique, best practice, whatever you want to call it, that we could always keep in our minds when we're building out these tables and these connection fields, and that is the direction of the actual connection. All right, now 99% of the time, you're going to have connections that go from a child to a parent. Okay, this is a good way to kind of describe the actual relationship because it's very easy to understand the actual relationship between a child and a parent. So that kind of translates well into connection fields and relationships between tables. However, there's more ways to kind of think about this or visualize this. Okay, um, the language that I always like to use, not only in my own head when I'm thinking about how to build something, but how I describe it to other people, is what belongs to what. Okay, a project belongs to a company. A company does not belong to the project. So if we think about it that way, then the connection field is going to live on the project level. Okay. Another way to think about this is smallest to largest. Now, that's a very generic kind of and vague way to think about it, but sometimes it does help. Okay. Time tracking is going to be um, the smallest kind of entity or the smallest object that you're going to have when you're working with a project, right? You have this project, it's a big, massive thing, and has lots of things contained within the project, right? Such as deliverables, tasks, and then time tracking. It's the smallest level thing. It's always going to belong to the larger object. Okay, and lastly, another good way to kind of visualize connections and how to map these things out is individual items that will connect to a group of things. Okay, so if you had products and product categories, where product is the individual and product category is the group. Okay, all right, so that's enough of this. I hope this image kind of makes sense. You've been looking at it as I've been rambling on and on. Okay, so we are going to switch over to the builder now and start to actually build out these tables. All right, and as we build this out, we're going to talk about why this structure is so important when you're building something like this. And we're not only going to set up the actual data builder, but we're going to just set up some pages in the page builder as well. Right, the first thing we're going to have is companies. Okay, now I'm going to keep this as basic as possible, where we're only going to really focus on the connection fields, right? And maybe some additional like text fields, number fields, count fields, things like that. But we're not going to go super in depth with building out like a whole system. We're really going to mainly focus on the connections and then what we can do with those connections. Okay, the next one is projects. So let's create all of our tables first, and then we'll go through and start to add all the connections here. So tasks, and then time tracking. Okay, so companies, we're just going to have company name. That's fine. Projects, we're going to have the name of the project, and we're going to have a connection that goes to companies. Now, one thing I want to just quickly mention is when I'm building out applications, I like to actually build the tables in the order that makes the most logical sense, right? Where companies is the top level item and time tracking is the lowest level item in this particular group of tables. So I build them in that particular hierarchy because this entire thing that we're talking about right now is really focused on hierarchy. Okay, so moving on to deliverables, we're going to connect to the last 2 tables that we dealt with, projects and companies. So we'll keep them in that order. We'll do project, and then we'll also connect to company. And we'll continue on with tasks, again, connecting to the previous 3 tables in this case. So deliverables, projects, and companies. Okay, now you notice I'm doing all of these as a one-to-one connection. Okay, again, like I said, 99% of the time you're going to be building connections that go from the child to the parent, and 99% of the time you're going to have one-to-one connections. Okay, even though it says one-to-one, as you can see here when we start to build things out, there's going to be many tasks that connect to one deliverable. It simply means that there is one record connects to one record, but there could still be multiple records within the task table that all connect to a deliverable. So we did the tasks, and now we're going to go to time tracking. Okay, so last one here, we'll set this up quickly. They connect to task, then we connect to deliverables, then we connect to projects, and finally, companies. Okay, and again, I'm trying to keep this as simple as possible. So the time tracking table, we're simply just going to have a number field that's how many, or we'll just say hours worked. Okay, and this will just be a number field to hold that value of how many hours were worked on this particular task. The task, we will add an option field here where we can choose the task status, open and closed. And I suppose that's okay for now. That's all we really need to focus on. Okay, so if we look at something like this graph, right? You can see that even though as we're kind of working through this system, okay, where we have companies, we have projects, deliverables, tasks, and time tracking, and we have this structure, right, where this is a tiered kind of a tiered system where there's every single table has connections to all of the previous tables. When you look at the graph, you can see that every single table now has a direct connection back to a company. Okay, that's very important. Now, if we do the same thing with projects, you can see every single thing below projects, where deliverables, tasks, and time tracking all have a direct connection back to a project. All right, and this is going to become really important on the page side or the page builder because of the way that we can use this information. Because everything has a connection to the parent most object, in this case companies, we can do calculations on here. We can always make sure that we are if the companies are connected to users, then those logged in users will always have access to all of the information um, below companies, whether it's the projects, deliverables, whatever, because they are connected to that particular object's company. So there's a lot of benefits of building it in this particular way. Everything is always going to have a direct connection to its nearest neighbor or its closest relative. The other nice thing about this, which we'll get to once we get into the page builder, is that this particular structure, because it is a hierarchy of tables, it naturally implies how the pages should be set up, right? First, you add a company, then you add a project, then you add a deliverable, then you add a task, right? And then if you, for some reason, want to go straight to a task, I want to add a task, then you can also you can connect directly from that task to any existing record in any other table, or you have the option to, of course, create new records in those tables and set that connection directly. And there's one more thing I want to focus on here in the data builder, and that's table rules, okay? Because we're going to automate some of this connection setting so that we don't have to constantly think about it. And like I've mentioned in previous videos, if you don't have access to table rules on your specific plan, you can always do the same thing inside of form rules. The reason that I like table rules is because I can set them up once, and it doesn't matter how many forms I have that are adding records to my application. It's always, the table rule is always going to run. I don't have to rebuild them on multiple forms. So what we're going to be doing here is setting up that when a new time tracking record is created and it has a connection to a task, we can then essentially look up the tasks connected deliverable, project, and company. All right, so we can set a rule here to say when a new record is created or edited, we can set deliverable to a connected value of the tasks deliverable, set the project to a connected value of the tasks project, set company to a connected value of the tasks company. Okay. Now, when we create a new task here, we set the connection and the hours worked. Then it will automatically just go grab the task's deliverable, the connected tasks project and the connected tasks company. We'll do the same thing for the rest of the tables. Okay, now this is as far as we can go now. Okay, we can't really set up this type of rule on the projects level because there's only one connection. So these rules are always grabbing connected values, meaning when you select a connected project, we can go look up this connection from the project table. Okay, but we can't go any further than this, but at least we have this kind of automation set up for the last three tables in this particular group. Okay, so moving on to the page builder now. For this type of system, it's always a good idea to build out parent pages for every single table. So we have companies where we can add new companies. We have projects where we can add new projects. We have deliverables where we can add new deliverables. Okay, I think you get the point by now. We're just going to go through and add all of these particular tables as parent pages, meaning they are going to show data directly from their the relevant data table. Sorry, I hope I said that right. I'm half thinking. Okay, so time tracking, add new. Okay, now we can go through this now and add content or add data to all of our actual tables. And using the table rules that were already set up, then we really, when we add a new task, all we have to do is add the deliverable that it connects to, and everything else will be set. Furthermore, from the page structure, okay, when we are building out this page structure, we are going to move, or the reason why I built it in this way with all of these different parent pages is we're going to move laterally. Okay, we're going to navigate through the application almost laterally rather than continuing to move vertically. Let me show you what that means. Okay, so here in the companies page with the companies table or data table, we're going to go into the link section and we're going to turn on the record details page. We're going to add a record details page for every single one of these tables. So we'll do this now and then we'll talk about the alternative. Okay, we now have a details page where we can view more information about companies, projects, deliverables, tasks, and time tracking. Okay, when I'm looking at something like a company detail page, I can then add connected information. So on this page, when you're looking at a company, you can then actually add content or add data that will display all of the connected projects because every single table has a direct connection to companies. You can display every single piece of information relevant to this company right on the company details page. So here I can do, let's see, I'll show you. So we can add a new table and you can see we have access to every single one of those lower level tables in this tiered system. So we can show all the connected projects, all of the connected deliverables, all of the connected tasks, and all of the connected time tracking records. So let's add the projects. Now, from here, what I could do is I could add a details page to project, and then on the project's details page, I could add a table of the connected deliverables, and then do that process again, add a details page and a table of connected tasks, do that process again, add a detail page for tasks, and then a table of connected time tracking records. Okay, but what that's going to give us is this gigantic nested page structure. Okay, where we're always starting from companies. So if you were to imagine the breadcrumb trail here, we start at companies, company details, projects, project details. We're just going to keep going down the line in this gigantic nested page structure. It's going to be a lot easier if we can navigate laterally through the application, meaning once we're looking at company details and viewing connected projects, we can then navigate directly to project details to view more information about that particular project. So if I build out that same idea, but I do this from separate parent pages, then I can now navigate laterally through the application using connected page links in order to move back and forth, add data, that type of thing. Okay, so we're going to now do a table of connected deliverables. Whoops, too many things there. Company, project, okay, good. And then we will do the same thing for the deliverable details, where now we're showing the connected tasks. And I'm adding all of the fields to the table just so it's visually clear what's happening. And then we have task details, and this will show all of the time tracking records. And now for this one, like there's really nothing to show on the time tracking detail page because it's the lowest level item. Here we go. Great. All right, now we'll go back to the top of company details, and on project company details where we're displaying the connected projects, we can now choose the links section to connected page, and you can see I can then navigate directly to project details. On project details where we're showing the connected deliverables, I can go to the links section, connected page, and go directly to deliverable details. Here we're going to go directly to task details. Task details, we're going to go directly to time tracking details. Again, even though this isn't really that important. All right, so I think that's enough talk about the setup, data structure, page builder, whatever. Let's actually check out the live app now, and we'll start to add data to all of these tables, and hopefully this will start to make more sense. Okay, so we have our application. It currently has no records in any tables. So here are all of our parent pages that we set up where we can view the raw data from the particular data tables. So we'll start with companies and we'll add a new company. So for this, it will be Tadabase. Okay, now let's go to the projects page so we can add a new project. All right, so if we do a new project, this will be, we'll call this Build It with Tim, and we can select the company to add that connection. Now, all of the table rules that we set up are going to start to apply for the deliverables, tasks, and time tracking tables here, or pages. Now, these forms are going to contain all of the information. I did not modify them, so my apologies. I should have cleaned them up beforehand. But here's a deliverable is going to be upload a video. And the project is for Build It with Tim. Okay, now you can see I'm not setting the company connection here. When I save this, that table rule is going to run. It's going to go find the company that's connected with this project and set it automatically. Okay, now we'll move on to the tasks. And here we're going to add multiple tasks for the deliverable. So in order to upload the video, we're first going to need to we'll say create video thumbnail. This will be connected to the deliverable of upload the video. Again, I don't need to set any of this information, and will automatically get those connections set using the table rules. Record the video. And we'll say edit video. Okay, so this is going to be the only ones we're going to do. Open, open, open. Okay, and then lastly, we have the time tracking, which sure we'll say we did 10 minutes for the video thumbnail. Again, all of this information, deliverable is now set, project is set, company is set, and we only set one connection here. Because we have access, every single table has access to its nearest neighbor, its direct parent, and we can always go into that table, retrieve all of the other parents. Okay, so it's a fantastic method when you only want to set one particular connection and automatically grab all of the other relevant information. So, oh, I forgot I did hours worked. So apparently 10 hours on that thumbnail for hours. No, that was supposed to be 10 minutes. Okay, 1 hour for the recording. And then let's do 1 hour for editing. Okay. All right. Now, that's all fine and good, but we can take this one step further using those detail pages that we made. So let's navigate through the details pages now. So you can see how we're shifting kind of laterally through the application. So I'd like you to pay attention to the breadcrumb trail at the top of the page. Okay, here we are looking at company details with this particular project. If I click on project details, we are now navigated to the next section of the application where projects now project details. So every single details page that we go to in this application is always going to be one level below the parent. Very, very similarly to how the data structure is always one level below the direct parent. So upload video, again, deliverable details takes us right to the deliverable details page rather than continuing to navigate vertically. So if we did it the other method, the other way that I described earlier, where we built all these pages out vertically, then the breadcrumb trail would now read companies, company details, project details, deliverable details. We would have this big long string of this nested page structure. Okay, and then again, task details and then time tracking details. So we're just navigating laterally between the application rather than vertically. Okay, so the detail pages. When I have a table of connected items on a detail page, if I enable the add new record pop-up, then by default, that connection used in the data table is going to be included for the add the form component. Okay, so here's the data source. We're looking at projects that are connected using the company connection field. So when I add a new project, that company connection is going to be automatically set. Okay, so we're going to turn this on for all of the other detail pages. And then we're going to go back through it one more time, and then we'll have a finished thing here. Hold on, just bear with me. All right, so here we go. Add a new record for deliverables. It's going to check this. So this is connecting the, what was this? This was connecting the project, right? This was connecting the project. So we don't have to include any additional connections here. Okay, that's my point. We don't have to include any other connections because everything else is set in the table rules. Deliverable details. Add new record. Let's go to the form and get rid of the project and company. Task status we can keep. That's fine because we have two fields that we can manually set here. Task details, then we're adding new time tracking records. So we're turning this on, and then we are removing all of the connections here because we don't need to set them manually anymore. Okay, so the difference here between what I showed you first, where we added a company, added a project, and we had to set the company connection, is that once we're on company details and we add a connected project, we no longer have to set the company connection. It's handled by Tadabase internally. Okay, so we're good now. So if I go back, actually I can go back to the page here. We're going to go to the company details page. We're going to add a new project. So this, we'll call this, these are some other videos here. So we'll do feature spotlight. Okay, hopefully you've seen some of my feature spotlight videos. If not, be sure to check those ones out. Feature spotlight, you can see it set the company automatically. All I did was give the project a name. All the connections are set automatically. The company connection is set automatically by the data source selection when we built out the page. The projects that are added or the projects that are displayed in this table are directly connected to the company. Therefore, any new records that we add to this table will share the same connection. All right, now we can go into project details. We'll add deliverables. I don't know. I don't want it to be the exact same thing, but it will be. Upload video, because I'm not creative right now. Upload video, again, everything, connections are already set. Deliverable details. This one will be, I don't know, pick a topic, open, and create demo app, open. All right, and then task details, we can go to either one of these, pick topic, we can add time tracking for this. We'll say hours worked is 0.25, which I did not turn on decimal points for that. So let's do that now quickly before I get any further. Decimal places 2. Okay. All right. That is the page structure now. So now we can go through any single item within any other table, and we can always get to its nearest neighbor. Okay. The last thing I wanted to show you with this particular structure, which is something that I referenced earlier in the video, which is that every single table has a direct connection to its most parent object. So in this case, companies is the most parent object for everything. Projects is the most parent object for deliverables, tasks, and time tracking. That means that we can perform calculations on any table, and we'll be able to calculate on all of the tables below it. So let's go to something like company details. Let's say I were to add a new row with 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, we'll do, no, I should have done something different. So let's actually get rid of this. There's 4 tables that exist below companies: projects, deliverables, tasks, and time tracking. So let's add a new row with 4 columns. Here I can add a card component, and I can perform calculations on any of the 4 tables below it. Okay, so we can count how many projects there are for this particular company. We can add another card component, and we can show, where is it? Here we are, how many deliverables. Now, of course, if you have more information about each thing, like project budget or something, or expenses, whatever it is, like if you had some sort of currency field where you were tracking things, you could say, how much is this, what's the ROI for this project, or whatever you need. But in this case, we're just going to count, with the exception of, well, tasks we're still going to count, but here we can then, because now we have a direct connection from tasks to companies, we can do this particular calculation, and we can also put a condition on the calculation. So we're going to count how many tasks are open. And in here, we're going to do time tracking, and in this one, we can do the sum of all of the time tracking, all of the hours worked for this particular company, right? This is the top level oversight of every single thing that this company is working on: projects, deliverables, tasks, and all of the tracked time. Okay, now if you wanted to do the same thing for projects, you could certainly do that, where you add card components, calculations. You could even add, rather than doing card components, you can add the calculations directly as fields inside the project table. So we can do a count of how many deliverables. Okay, and now that we're saving this actual value to the data table, it means that you can use it in other Tadabase functions as a condition, as a filter, whatever you need it for. Okay, you can use it in pipes, it doesn't matter. There's plenty of places where you could use this. So let me go back to this. I just realized I forgot to actually add what these cards were. So this is total projects, font size 30. This will be, what is this one? This is total deliverables, centered. This is open tasks. So let's do this. Open tasks. And lastly, we'll do total time worked. Okay, so this is for the whole company, right? Whole company. You could repeat this, add this card for the project on the project details page to show the total time worked for just that project. So So here, if we go into Tadabase as a company, we have 2 projects, 2 deliverables, 5 tasks, and 12 and a quarter hours spent across the entire company, all of the projects, all of the deliverables, and all of the tasks. Okay. So I think that's it for this week's episode. There's not a whole lot else I need to say at this point. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I hope you were able to learn quite a bit about the direction in which connections will primarily, and for the majority, be created, right, from a child to a parent object. I hope you kind of learned how to build this tiered connection system or cascading connections where every single table has a direct connection to all of its parents, and then how to build out a page system for this where you are navigating laterally as opposed to vertically, okay, using connected page links. All right. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. We'll see you next week. Take care.